Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Cyril Bourke. I'm joined today by Caroline Pope, one of Australia's well-known animal communicators and NES practitioner. We are going to have a conversation today about animal handling, how to be safe, how to get the best scans for your animals. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you.
Now, Caroline, you've been using the NES system for a number of years now. I know you've got a very long history treating and working with animals, and I must admit I've thoroughly enjoyed the work I've seen you do and some of the things that have gone on. Let's have a chat today and try and help NES practitioners have a think about what happens when they start handling animals, particularly when they may not own animals themselves or be familiar with the animals coming in the door. Now, this is something that NES practitioners, when they start using the animal system, maybe can find a bit confronting. What's your experience when you've been talking to practitioners through the Facebook and others?
Cats in particular they can struggle with, but I mean cats have catitude and they're not always easy to work with. NES certainly is brilliant because it is so non-invasive, but trying to get a cat to stay still for 3 seconds while you're scanning it, can be a little bit challenging. The trick is not to rush the cat, to give them the time to explore, sit down, let it sniff you, let it get comfortable with you, keep your energy low, talk to the owner and ignore the cat for 10 minutes. You'd be surprised just how much stress that takes off the cat. And usually they'll come up if you know that the cat is absolutely terrified and they're not going to come. Have the owners confine it and then work straight away, scan the cat, get it all over and done with, because you can work remotely using broadcast mode and it doesn't matter if the cat's sitting in the back of the cupboard. They'll be far happier there than trying to sit on the owner's lap with the eyes bulging and the claws digging in.
That's right, and I've got some photos that I'll be putting on the screen for our viewers, so they can see the type of shall we say distressed animals that often can be seen in clinic, and some that are giving us indications that they're not happy. They're wide-eyed, mouths open, startled looking. Some of the indicators, obviously, you sometimes see fur stand on end. You see the ears go flat. Lots of distress signs. Do you have any other visuals on a cat that might not be as clear as teeth, so to speak?
The tail.
Oh, it sounds like the dog's telling us something as well.
A very large puppy dog who's rather peeved. How dare someone walk on the street? Now, there is one right there of a not happy dog that doesn't want anything done. You wouldn't go scanning that dog right that instant. Well, not that close to the mouth anyway. Swishing tails with cats are a very big indicator. The cat gives a lot of information with his tail and with his pupils. If they start to dilate, you will see more black in the cat's eye. That's an indicator that the cat is either very excited or very stressed.
Okay, and
one to be wary of. Usually the claws follow quite quickly thereafter.
That's right. So really, from a handling point of view, would you suggest that the owner should be encouraged to sort of handle the cat and to hold the scanner and maybe be calm and give the animal time and things of this nature?
Absolutely. And 9 times out of 10, if you can get the cat calm enough to do that and you put it on rapid scan, it only takes 3 seconds. The owner doesn't need to actually be touching the cat. Just make sure you've got the body field on before the owner lets it go, and the cat will usually stay there. My Health's are wonderful. The little scanners, it can be a little more challenging, but it certainly can be done. Just part some of the cat's hair if it's happy to sit there, and then take the hands off, keep the scanner there and scan.
Yeah, I mean, if the cat itself doesn't really want to sit still, which can be a possibility, I've found it still fairly useful just to let the owner sit with the cat, and the cat is used to being typically in that position, and they don't recognize the scanner as an alien event. It's just something, the hand on the chest, for example, when they're holding it, that normally allows them to do a scan. I mean, the cat is probably one of the hardest furry animals to scan because the hair is so fine, it doesn't hold much moisture, and the device is looking for a level of field, a sensor that's recognizing a change in the field there, and it is under the chest or under the armpit that you get enough moisture to trigger the device to scan. And the owner itself doesn't really interfere with the scan because the cat is used to being with the owner. I did notice on one of the Facebooks there was a suggestion of grabbing the cat's paw and forcing it upon the silver disc on the remote scanner, which, to be honest, would give you obviously a scannable field, but the cat's under extreme stress. It's almost like it's been put into a snare, as you might grab and hold the animal. It's a totally alien sensation to it. They'll pull and fight, won't they? And they don't want to be part of that. And that's not going to give you a true indication of how that animal is with the owner in a comfort state, so to speak.
And that's the difference, a big difference between scanning at home, in the animal's home, in their environment, what you can do, versus in a clinic situation. If the cats are happy in their cat box, sometimes it's safer to do them in there. I've got clients that have shoe boxes, especially for scanning. The cats love them, so they pull out the shoebox 5 minutes before I walk in the door, and all the cat's interested in is playing in the shoebox. It's easy to scan.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. It would be so it's a normal size shoebox, and the cat.
Yeah, or I mean, the old, what was the ad? 20,000 or something for whatever it is, and all the cat wants to do is play in the empty box. Cats love boxes, so having a couple of small cardboard boxes big enough cat size, they'll often jump in them and be quite happy to play in them, and that makes it easy to scan. And if you're at the vet clinic, or if you have to actually travel with the cat, in which case I'd be suggesting remote scanning anyway, you can always leave them in the carrier, providing they're not aggressive, so you're not going to get your hands swiped as you're trying to slide your arm in to get the scan. It's often an easier way for everybody and safer.
Yeah, it does highlight the use of actually providing a remote scanning for animals, particularly the cats. It does make it much, much easier, and it's a quicker event. The animal's at home, and they're naturally comfortable in their own space rather than travelling. Unfortunately, most animals recognise travel as probably being taken to a vet and then something unpleasant occurring, typically some form of procedure or injection or examination that they weren't really engaged in properly. So, home scanning for animals is a really useful tool.
That was actually what got me started, was a cat with I think the first remote scanning with my cat. That was what got me started with NES.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now, you regularly, obviously, scan animals, etc. Are there any interesting stories related to change for cats?
Oh, probably the one that I actually started the remote scanning with. She was a little Bengal. She'd been used as a breeding queen, then wound up in an animal shelter in a little box for 3 years. It was a no-kill shelter before I got her. And she was fine for a couple of months and then wasn't able to defecate without an enema. And then when she started getting real pain, I'm talking to the point that we couldn't touch her. So we were having to give her an enema every second or third day and injectable painkillers to manage her pain. And we couldn't work out what it was. We tested a lot, and in the end the vets just said, well, you can't keep her like this, which, no, you couldn't. Time to do the deed. So, of course, I'd seen and met Rob Willis once and said, well, what can I do? And he said, well, she's not going to survive I think it was an 800k round trip to go interstate, but the remote scanners have come out. So I mastered all the technology and scanned the cat and sent it off. And I remember it well because it was Cup Day in Melbourne, and Rob was rolling his eyes to humour me. And I said, all right, well, why can't we do the scan? He said, all right, we've got this, 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 and this, but, with everything you've said, I really don't know that there's anything we can do. We then promptly rang Queensland and said, right, send out the infoceuticals now. And, of course, being able to put them on the coat when she was that sore was just a godsend. It was the only way we were able to dose her. But she never needed another injectable painkiller till the day before she died. And I got an extra 13 months out of her, I think.
Wow. I was going to ask, how long extra do you think she lived? Tell me about the dosing of infoceuticals for cats. We're going to talk about dogs and horses in a moment, but for cats, what have you been finding is an effective dose rate?
Rates anywhere between 3 and 9 drops. depending on the cat, depending on what you're giving, obviously. And I just drop them straight onto the coat. It's still entering the body field. Humans, you can do the same. I had the lady whose husband rang me up and abusing me because I was doing witchcraft. Turns out his wife, I'd said as a joke, as a throwaway line, and his wife had taken me literally and had been every night when he was asleep, she was rubbing chill into his skin because he was much nicer. He woke up in the middle of it all, found out I popped the abusive phone call. He's now on chill every day and taking peace.
So is he feeling better?
He's feeling much better, and the whole family is happier.
Oh dear. Well, that's good news. That's good news. Have you ever, or is it a suitable way to put it in their water or their food? Are there advantages and disadvantages? What have you found?
I don't. I like to know that they've got it. If it's in the water, obviously you don't know how much that cat's going to drink, or the dog. And particularly cats, they get naturally 80% of their liquid intake from the food. So on a day in Melbourne today, it's under 10 degrees. With a cat fed a raw species appropriate diet, I wouldn't expect it to drink. So you need to know what they're getting.
Okay, now if one of the practitioners is hearing a cat vocalizing or panting, what should they take from that? What should they recognise?
Massive stress and or pain.
Right, okay.
And, work out which it is. And obviously if it's pain, we need to do something about it. Stress, inner peace, chill, ESR. And if the cat's really bad and you can touch it, whenever I do a cranial, I always start with chill directly over the brain, on body, and in a fairly high setting, because then they just go to sleep and it's nice and easy to work on. And it really does drop stress very, very nicely and very, very quickly.
Okay. So are you talking about putting on body or?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
With cats, I'd use setting 2. With dogs, I'll use setting 3. If my big boy is really overstimulated, it will be setting 4.
So you're talking about intensity?
Yep.
Super. Yeah. And energy level, what's a common energy level that you might have it on?
10 to 17%, depending on the individual cat and its reaction.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Dogs, again, it really depends on the dog's size, and also some people. Some are more energetically sensitive than others.
Cool. Have you come across situations where the cat is so distressed you may have to sort of hold it in a towel or wrap it or give it some form of comfort by sort of creating that sort of slight restriction?
I haven't, but then I think that's also because where I work, and I do a lot of it within the people's homes. But certainly in vet clinics over the years, we've had to do plenty of that. And even just the getting in the car, as you say. I mean, my cat loves to travel. I'm very lucky with one of them. But the other one, yes, the only time she's been in the car has been either to move house or go to the vet. So, of course, her association when I put her in the car isn't going to be particularly happy.
Yeah.
And that's, you do find that the only cats that generally travel well are those whose people have a holiday house and they're in the car quite often travelling to the holiday house. It's all about association.
Yes, yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, let's have a chat about dogs here. Now, you have a magnificent dog, and you were good enough to bring it to one of the NES trainings.
See, he just likes to be heard, doesn't he? It's a bloke thing. Thank you. We're talking about you. We didn't say we needed to hear you.
That's quite true. He's wonderful, isn't he? Now, tell us explain this dog breed, because it's a monster, isn't it?
He is large, even for the breed. Serkan is an Anatolian Shepherd. They're the Turkish national dog. They're a livestock guardian. A lot of people will know the Marama as a livestock guardian. They live out with the flocks in Turkey and protect them from wolves and bears and foxes. There's quite a few in South Africa at the moment too, protecting the farmers' goats and that from the cheetahs, because farmers were poisoning and baiting cheetahs, and of course everything else was getting caught in the crossfire. So the government said, we'll pay for the dogs, we'll pay for the vet fees, we'll pay for the training. All the farmers do is pay for the food. The dog lives out with the goats or the sheep, and the cheetah goes, nah, not worth taking that on. I'll go and hunt a wildebeest or something like that. So the environment wins, cheetah numbers are up, farmers are happy. It's just a win-win all round.
Now, when a practitioner has a large dog arrive and they're not familiar with this animal, I guess the early concerns are things like biting, behavior of that nature, scratching, etc. Now, I found dealing with large animals, my personal feeling, my energy, my emotional state has a huge impact on how that animal reacts. And I often try and guide practitioners in them taking control of themselves, so to speak, and not becoming fearful. I mean, the famous video of me treating the bull was a perfect example of not taking on any fear, and then the animal is able to take on the signals without shall we say, confusion. For nest practitioners, seeing maybe a large dog in clinic is something that they're frightened of. They really have to bring themselves emotionally together, because obviously the dog is recognizing that. Some animals, unfortunately, are at a point where the owners carry muzzles and actually muzzle them, bringing them into clinics of that nature. I do suggest never for the practitioner themselves to try and muzzle an animal. It's the owner's responsibility.
Absolutely. And sadly, that's something that people really do need to keep in mind. Less than 5% of owners with aggressive or potentially aggressive dogs will carry a muzzle. They seem to think that it's your responsibility, or that, oh no, he'll be okay. No. And so you really do need to ask a lot of questions. Observe. If you get a chance, have a look how that dog's getting out of the car. Is it pushing the owner out of the way? Is it erect? Is it up? Is it looking around? Is its tail up over the back? Is it walking stiff-legged? Or is it happy, calm and relaxed and on a loose lead? You'll get a lot of information just watching the dog get out of the car.
Absolutely. And
start training yourself to observe beforehand.
Now, indications from the animal and things that we should be careful of. I mean, the most common one is don't try and look the animal in the eye. Don't get to floor level with an animal you're unfamiliar with. Typically, I've advised them to, if the dog, all of those things are starting to encroach on their space and they feel vulnerable.
Don't walk to the dog. Call the dog to you.
Yeah.
If the dog doesn't come to you and you have to go to the dog, chances are that's when you're likely to get bitten.
Mm-hmm.
If the dog is happy enough to come to you, you can even, I've done it before with a very nervous dog, called it to me with a little bit of food, had the scanner, and as it went to eat the food, scanner went under the chin. There's my 3 seconds, bang.
That's a good one. I like that. I'll give it something to like. What if you were a practitioner regularly seeing dogs? What sort of nibbles would you provide that you think would be most effective for most dogs? And what's the recommendation on that type of thing?
Look, a lot of dogs like dried liver. It's always fine. I mean, human cabana is usually a good one. Or one of my all-time favourites came from one of my clients, whose son was a truck driver. They used to air dry mango for their dog. In the air dry, sliced mango. And I laughed at them until I started getting doggy bags. That was a die for. Now, whether the dog liked them, and all dogs seem to like it because it's sugary, but it's whatever's available. And I mean, the proverbial roast chook, dogs and cats won't go past. But obviously, not many people are going to go to Red Rooster a couple of times a week to have roast chook in the fridge for the dogs.
Yes.
And you shouldn't really need to. I mean, look, it's useful if you absolutely have to make friends, but also too, I mean, if you brought out food and my dog took it, that would kick up enough brain stuff for him at the moment. He'd become dangerous. So, and some dogs are dangerous around food. So again, it's sort of that. Most dogs are okay with treats, but if you've got one that's a bit iffy, that also can, food can kick up a lot for a dog. It's survival. You don't eat, you die. So it's a very strong drive. And if that drive is in any way misrepresented, you can be in trouble.
Yeah, so now there are obviously easy outward signs for a dog, typically like growling, other vocalizations, the lip curling, showing the teeth.
Exactly, but also yawning and looking away. If the dog keeps turning its head away from you, it's saying in the nicest possible way, I'm trying to block you out. Stop putting me under pressure. Backing away, looking away, yawning, licking the lips, panting. Again, pupils. Pupils are such a good one. Most people don't look for the pupils. They should be tiny. You shouldn't see much black in the eye. Once those eyes start getting dilated, that's when you start looking for trouble. They can be slightly stiff-legged. Those dogs with a tail, going up over their back, unless, of course, they're a Spitz breed, in which case that's where they stay permanently anyway. And just how the dog is with the owner. Is it trying to hide behind? Is it comfortable and relaxed? Is it stiff? If the owner asks it to drop, does it do so, or does it sit up there going, I'm really not happy here, folks?
There's so many different conditions that dogs can come in with, and I have to say I've come across numerous dogs where they actually almost sacrifice their body field. What I'm referring to is things like I remember an elderly gentleman who had diabolical hips, and both of his dogs did. It really did look like they were all scanned as the same field. It was a fascinating view. I've also seen that with horses in some way. So what commonalities do you often see when you're seeing the dogs and their behaviour, for example, in scans?
I tend to really yell at humans that happens to, because humans have an expectation of it, and I have very little sense of adventure for that. But heavy metals is an interesting one that will come up with everybody and everything, but also stuff like heart issues, because if people have heart stuff, dogs will take it on, and vice versa, if people allow their dogs to. Thyroid issues is another one you'll often see running across multiple species. Part of it is dietary for all of us, part of it is emotional for all of us. What else? Bone stuff often comes up. And I guess possibly because I see more women with dogs than men, and of course women these days, osteoporosis, and a lot of my older clients in their 50s and 60s that are now having calcium problems had either anorexia or bulimia as teenagers, and of course it's all coming back, and they're paying for it now. And of course, dogs with commercial food, it's a really bad combination.
Okay. Tell us what type of success stories have you seen that you really enjoyed being part of for the dogs?
I'm just trying to think of a couple off the top of my head. Oh, one I'm actually doing at the moment, and it's she's a client. She's also a friend, and she has breast cancer. She's just buried her mother from the same disease. So as you can imagine, the house is pretty ugly, pretty uptight. And I actually, my gift to them was a bunch of feel-good infoceuticals, saying we'll deal with everything else, but get all these into you. And the dog these people put their wedding on hold for the dog. That's how much they love it. Required hip replacement and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he's 7 or 8 now, and he shouldn't have been alive. They recommended euthanasia at 3 months. So they've done a wonderful job with his body. But it was really starting to pack up, and I was wondering why. And of course, as soon as we got the diagnosis, I've gone, this is what all this is. So I said to them, all right, I want you to shove him and the cat who's got IBS chock full of feel-goods as well as yourself. And I'm sure they thought I was mad, but they'll do anything to humour me. And surprise, surprise, within 24 hours, he's a lot better. The cat stopped having gut problems. And because then the animals have relaxed, the humans relax. It's a really interesting paradigm to watch. And as an aside to that, she has an absolute paranoia of anybody drinking out of her water bottle. We all have our paranoia, that's hers. And her sister came and was picking up, it had peace in it. Her sister came and for the first time pretty much ever was drinking out of this girl's water bottle going, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I can't stop. Do you want another water? No, there's something about this water. I really need this water.
Isn't that wonderful? So that's a feel-good in a water bottle. There's a lot for us to learn there.
We love feel-goods in water bottles.
Excellent. Let's turn our attention to the big horses. Well, they're not all big, but they always feel big when you're not used to horses. The typical NES practitioner would be travelling to the horse or doing the remote scans. What advice have you got regarding handling of horses? Now, I'm lucky; I've had quite a bit of experience with horses, and I don't frighten easily with them. But even when you're doing a scan, or should we say treating, particularly with the My Health, they do love moving into you, trying to almost pin you into a stall, insisting on more treatment, and that can be a bit disconcerting for a practitioner who's not used to that, and something actually to be avoided in confined spaces.
Absolutely. I will not treat a horse in a confined space. I make it very clear if I'm driving to them, if it's raining, we're not doing it. Oh, but I've got a stable. I don't care. I will not. I have seen a fellow craniosacral therapist, crushed ribs, crushed pelvis, busted, punctured lungs, whole lot of stuff in a stable. You need room. It's just not worth the risk. If they're that desperate for a treatment, they should be at the vet. So I will not treat in a confined space in any way, shape, or form. You need to have room to move. When you're scanning, particularly if you're doing a remote scan, don't do the neck in summer where it twitches, where there's flies. I spent half an hour the first time with my boy trying to do that, and of course it kept breaking contact. Try the top of the leg or the where the girth is, just behind the point of the elbow there. They don't tend to twitch that much there. It's an easy area. There's not much hair, and it's easy to scan. As far as treating them, always have the owner stand on the same side. If you work, most owners will stand on the near side because that's what or the left side for non-horse people, because that's what they're taught to do. But if you're working on the right side, get the owner to stand on the right side or the off side of the horse. That way, if the horse does start to panic, they're automatically going to turn their head around towards you, which keeps the kicking end out of your line of fire.
That's right. And some of the warning signs is the starting of the tail swishing faster, feet stamping, ears being pinned back or forwards. All of these are a starting
trying
point.
To walk over the top of the owner.
Yes.
And really watch that, because sadly, I've refused to treat 30% of horses. I've sent them off to Carlos, to Bernaberry, Whispering Acres for groundwork. I won't put myself at risk. They're too big. You can still have too many stuff. I mean, my old girl was bomb-proof, absolutely bomb-proof, till the day Kangaroo came out of the stable. I know who got more of a fright, the Kangaroo, the horse, or me. But I wound up with a couple of fractured ribs. No one's fault. You get unexpected stuff anyway. But these horses that are never, ever taught to stand, they're tied up, they're pulling back. You watch them, they're barging literally and trying to walk through the humans on the ground. They're trying to rub on top of them. That's completely disrespectful. You really don't want to be working with a horse like that, because they're the ones you'll get hurt with. And the really shut down ones they pay no attention whatsoever to the owner or the practitioner. They're off looking at something in the distance, and it's like you're not part of their reality. That's basically, I'm shut down, I'm not coping, I've blocked you out. And the problem with that is something gives that horse a fright. They have blocked you out to the point they will if they shy, they can literally shy and can run on top of you, because they've blocked you out so effectively you cease to exist.
Yeah, they
and
don't know where
particularly in
you
the
are.
performance horse world, you see a lot of that.
Yeah, and the most dangerous item I've seen around a horse is a mobile phone. And you don't want the owner using one and being distracted and bored. They've got to turn them off, put them on silent, put them away, and pay attention to the horse. Because if that owner is just standing around using their phone, that means they're not paying attention to what's happening and putting the practitioner at risk, which is absolutely a no-no. And the same for practitioners. They need to make sure these phones aren't going to burst into life, because that can be a very, very abrupt change to the environment and put people at risk.
Also, your gut instinct. Everything can look pretty and hunky-dory, but if there's something in your gut instinct that goes, this isn't safe, or I don't know why, but I don't feel I should be doing this, please listen to that gut instinct and don't do it.
That's right. It's worth remembering that the horse is a prey animal, so it's designed to bolt, run. It senses anxiety, stress, fear, and obviously any sense of stress that the practitioner's got, the horse will start to become aware of it. It'll change their inner senses and they'll be ready to jump at the first moment. So any of the practitioners listening, enjoy horses, don't be frightened of them, and then you'll be much safer. But if you have anxiety, spend time with horses to lower that stress level and raise your observation level.
And unofficially, you can also use the My Health on your own head with both chill and inner peace before you do. Literally over your brain, it knocks it out in about 20 seconds, and then you're a lot calmer. Works really well. I've used it myself several times that way.
Excellent. So just run that past us again. So you're getting out of the car, you're heading towards the barn. Is that when you do it?
Well, usually sitting in the car before I get out, I'll use 4 at about 25%, 30%, because with your hair you don't tend to feel as much. A minute on chill, minute on peace, and yeah, by the time you've then got out and toddled off to find pony, you'll find that you're fairly zen. It's not sedating in any way, but it really does change, reground you, and brings you back much more into the now. And you'll often find when you do that, your observation skills are much higher.
Yeah, it brings you back to focus on what's happening there. I was going to ask, what sort of changes have you seen in horses that you've really gone, well, that was vital, that treatment we did. What sort of things have you seen?
A couple of horses that the owners were going to sell them, and we've worked past the pain stage, and it was pain association, although I suspect probably 50% of that was also rider association, and of course one tees off with the other. But as well as doing the infaceuticals, peace and chill, to both of them before they jumped on board. And now they're happily out and enjoying riding, as opposed to it being a chore that they're both scared of. I've seen some fabulous, fabulous gut stuff. And of course, horses are prone to stomach problems. And of course, Nessie's just brilliant with all that sort of stuff. And hormone issues in mares. Particularly, we've had a really odd season this year. Lots of hormonal disruptions for mares. A lot of owners really don't want to know about that. And quite often those mares are quite head shy. They can be testy, they can be bitey. Telling them, no, you don't even have to worry about squirting the stuff in their mouth. Just lift up their rug and squirt it underneath, or squirt it on their mane before you ride is all you need to do. You've got owner compliance with that, and the mares settle down very, very quickly.
When you're talking about infaceuticals, now I've commonly suggested 2 millilitres, because here in Australia we've got 20 millilitre bottles of infaceuticals and a 3 millilitre oral syringe, and I mean a plastic syringe. They fit beautifully in the top of our bottles, so it's been quite convenient to be able to do 2 millilitres, because that gives a single treatment once a day for 10 days, and the horse seems to take on changes in that manner. But have you been using more or less, or any other delivery methods?
I don't even, with Khaleesi, because she was so bad about her mouth, there was no way I was going near her. Why try and kill yourself when you don't have to? So yeah, just on her mane, or just lift up the rug and squirt straight onto her coat and down her spine when I was brushing her. She was the tie-up area. Works beautifully. Within about 3 seconds after squirting one lot down her spine, you'd see her taking all the reactions, and she'd yawn and she'd lick and she'd do all of it.
Yeah, that's right. And it's worth recognising for the practitioners that lowering the head, yawning, the sort of the lip movement that you see, you'll often see passing of gas and manure. They just sort of relax and they just give a sense of calmness, don't they?
Yeah, the eye softens. You'll often see shifting weight from one hip to the other as everything unwinds. As you say, that sense of calm.
Yeah, absolutely, and they respond so well to the calming of the practitioner. I actually had a lady who had a stallion that she said would never stand still, was almost impossible to put everything on, and she was frightened of this horse. When I went to see it, she was delayed, and I actually got to the barn before her, and she was doing something in the front of the property. The stallion was absolutely fine, still, relaxed. As she entered the barn, it started moving around and jostling and jumping, and she was the same. And it was her body field, her energy, that was actually causing the stallion to react this way. And the two scans were almost in perfect parallel, which was remarkable. And as a result, I do recommend practitioners who are currently animal specialists, so to speak, it really is worth having the human system, because a lot of the problems with animals and pets are part of the human interaction. And if you can do a support of the humans, the owners, the riders, you'll find that the treatment of both parties makes every difference. You can't just treat just treat one or the other, because they're cross pollutants, so to speak.
Yeah, if your horse has 4 infaceuticals and the human has 2 that are the same and 2 that are different, they go, I don't want to do a whole lot. Fine, just do the 2 that you and the horse are in tandem with. That'll be enough to change everything.
Hmm.
And it really does work.
Absolutely. And we've had people like John Toomey, who's an event rider, for those that are unfamiliar with him. He uses the NES system, and he found the great change for his 3-day eventing, where they do cross country, the jumping, and then have to do dressage, which is a totally different pace. It's calm, it's deliberate. His horses were struggling with calming down and doing deliberate work because they wanted to be out running and jumping. And he was carrying that energy of jumping and running, and he was having trouble calming down himself to do the deliberate work. When he treated himself, he was able to calm the horse, and he was able to get much better results out of the dressage work, much more deliberate work. And we have to wish him the very best. He's actually currently trying to become part of the Olympic team for Japan in 2020, I believe.
I think he is, yeah, and fingers crossed, because he's not just a really good rider, because you look at some of those jumps and seriously, attempted suicide would be easier, but he's also a gifted horseman. And sadly, the two are not always together. It'd be really lovely to see him get out there.
Yes, absolutely, and we wish him well on that dream. Caroline, thank you so much for sharing your experience there today. Is there anything?
You're very, very welcome.
Anything else you'd like to mention to the NES practitioners as they look at their My Health and animals and the infoceuticals?
Probably one thing with the My Health that I'm only thinking of because I did myself. I don't usually do a lot of on body, but my mare's got a bunch of problems, and I decided to do some on body. And we've done a little bit, and I thought, right, the three of us, as in the dog, the horse, and I, will all toddle off for a nice little 6K walk. We'll come back and I'll finish the session. Tied her up, went back to the same setting. Fortunately, I put the dog in the car because, of course, I'd forgotten she was all warm and sweaty, mildly. So, of course, her field was so much more sensitive, and I was still on setting 3 for intensity. Lovely blue spark. Electrocuted her. She broke the lead rope and toddled off, and I think it was about 20 minutes before she let me near her with the My Health. So just be aware that what you're using when the horse is cold and dry can be quite a different setting to when there's the moisture that Cyril was talking about in the coat earlier. You require much less of a setting.
Yeah, look, we obviously don't want the animals to associate the My Health with that type of sensation. And I do have to say, I think that's an extremely rare situation.
It is, but it's easy enough to do if you go into, as I do, automatic pilot.
Yes, yeah, that's right. That's right. Can I ask, you have access to parrots and things of this nature?
I've got a friend's cockatoo that talks to me quite a lot. One of the joys of being an animal communicator. I wouldn't necessarily say I've got access to a lot of birds. I can talk to them, but I haven't really done anything with nests with them.
I just wondered. We did have a member of staff at Nest that had a parrot. It was an African grey, if I remember, and I'll just share this, and you might have some words regarding it. It was an African grey, and this particular person would come home and play computer games such as Aliens v Cowboys or something, and it was loud and aggressive, and animal sounding aliens would be running around the screen making terrible sounds. Now the parrot in particular listens to the environment because in the jungle they can't see everything that's going on, and they share the knowledge of what's happening by listening to all the other animals. So this poor parrot was hearing fighting and growling and just all the terrible sounds of aliens fighting some imaginary event. And the poor thing passed out. It was in such shock. It thought it was going to be eaten by some monster. And after that, it would lose patches of fur, and it would really be a very sickly animal. And I was asked, what can he do to resolve it? Now, we initially used infoceuticals, and we provided those, and that had some effect, but the animal was still really, really in shock and quite concerned. And we started using some of the NES music, and that caused very big changes in the animal and reminded us that the parrot is looking for sounds that are comfortable, calming, relaxed. And in that case, it was the answer for that animal because it was so acutely listening to the environment. And that's where the threat came from. Now, how does that sort of sound from your experience of the birds themselves?
It's certainly to a point, and I think it's something. Yeah, they listen because the way they see. I mean, Caruso's shown me how to actually see, and it's much more like an infrared camera. So they certainly don't see in the way we do. They do rely more on hearing, but it's also energy. And birds are incredibly energetically sensitive. And I guess it's no different to they talk about the energy coming out of video games for kids. It's exactly the same. Only if you've got a very, very sensitive bird, it is going to affect them. And they are tuned in not only to the surrounding sounds, but think of what the human who's playing the game, look at his fight flight.
Ah, yes, it'd be absolutely radiating a field
Precisely,
of adrenal response, and that's why people play these games, don't they?
And then, of course, then it's all, that's right, and of course that's all amplifying. Now, if you've been able to potentially put him on something while he's playing the video game that dropped his cortisol levels, I think you would probably find, well, A, he probably wouldn't play it, but B, you're not going to have the problems with the bird. Because it's literally that double whammy. And they do sense energy at all times. That's their main way of doing stuff.
So with that knowledge, it's probably worth nest practitioners making more use of the music and maybe even supporting their clients by making the music and CDs available to them, because that can support any infoceutical and MyHealth treatment as well. It's creating the right energy, it's got the imprinted information in, it's possibly an overlooked tool that is very easy to implement, particularly when an animal is maybe left at home for many hours. This type of therapy could really be useful.
One of my clients is a clairvoyant and a very, very good one. And where the vet clinic I work at, she didn't like to used to like coming because she said she never liked the energy. Well, that's fair enough. I mean, a lot of what goes in at vet clinics isn't always fun energetically. And when she made that comment, I thought, okay. So I started using the imprinted music on the Provision CD. That's actually hooked in with Provision. And the next time she walked in, she's gone, oh, my God, what did you pay for a professional clearing? What did you do? No, I pushed a button and used a CD. But, of course, it is the NES imprinted music. And for her, she's very, very sensitive. And I just found that really interesting. So it's something, be it animals or the human clinic that I work at, I always, that's the first thing I do when I turn it on is put the music on to clear the energy. And it really does seem to work.
Wonderful, and that's energy medicine for you. I'd like to thank you again, Caroline. I'd like to thank our listeners. We look forward to bringing regular conversations regarding nests, MyHealth, animals, and the wonderful world of bioenergetics.
Thank you, and enjoy.
Yeah, and obviously Caroline's very regularly seen on Facebook, and I look forward to being there and discussing things with people as well.
And please, any practitioners that have stories, we love to hear them. Truly we do. Email, message, text, whichever. But we really would love them. We'd love to share them.
Well, that's exactly right, actually. There's a great opportunity to understand more through client experiences. And, it really would be nice to see that. So I wish you all a good afternoon. And thank you very much, Caroline.
Thank you. Take care.